Grandpa mocked for using smartphone until he shows what he can do with it. Hello, welcome, leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. Every family has that one member who just doesn't seem to fit in. For Santiago, it was his love for learning, something his grandchildren found old-fashioned and laughable. But when a simple gathering turns into a moment of public humiliation, Santiago's quiet determination to prove himself becomes more than just a quest for acceptance. It's a journey that will uncover a hidden strength no one saw coming. The laughter that echoed through the room was like a knife to his heart. But Santiago held onto a secret that even his closest loved ones had no clue about. What could an elderly man like him possibly do with a piece of technology meant for the young? The truth is more shocking than anyone could imagine, and when it comes out, it will leave everyone, including you, speechless. This is a story about more than just a man and his smartphone. It's about family, legacy, and the incredible lengths we go to be understood. Prepare yourself for an emotional roller coaster that will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, respect, and the quiet power of persistence. The warm Texas sun filtered through the curtains of the Martinez family's suburban Houston home, casting a golden glow on the gathering inside. It was Thanksgiving, and the house buzzed with the excitement of relatives reunited after months apart. The aroma of roast turkey and pumpkin pie wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the sounds of football on TV and children's laughter. Amidst the chaos, 78-year-old Santiago Martinez sat quietly in his favorite armchair, his weathered hands clutching a smartphone. His eyes, framed by deep wrinkles that spoke of a life filled with both joy and hardship, darted nervously between the screen and his family members scattered around the living room. "Mijos nietos," Santiago called out, his voice trembling slightly. "I want to show you something special." His daughter Elena glanced up from her conversation with her sister-in-law, a hint of concern in her eyes. "What is it, Papa?" Santiago's grandson, 16-year-old Miguel, rolled his eyes and muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." As the family reluctantly gathered around, Santiago's fingers, gnarled by arthritis, fumbled with the touchscreen. He tapped repeatedly, his brow furrowing in concentration. Just a moment," he mumbled, a bead of sweat forming on his forehead. Suddenly, the phone screen lit up, projecting onto the nearby wall. But instead of the photo album Santiago had intended to share, a series of private text messages flashed before everyone's eyes. "I miss you, my love. Life isn't the same without you. Wish I could hold you one more time." The room fell silent for a moment before erupting into laughter. Miguel snickered, nudging his cousin. "Look at that. Grandpa's trying to be a Romeo." Elena's husband, Robert, chuckled and shook his head. "Santiago, buddy, I think you hit the wrong button there." Santiago's face flushed crimson, a mix of embarrassment and hurt flooding his features. He desperately tried to turn off the projection, but in his flustered state, he only managed to scroll through more messages, each one more personal than the last. "Abuelo, you'll never understand these things." Miguel laughed, reaching for the phone. "Here, let me do it for you." Santiago pulled back, clutching the device to his chest. "No, I can do it," he insisted, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena, noticing her father's distress, attempted to defuse the situation. "All right, everyone, that's enough. Let's give Papa some space." But the damage was done. As the family dispersed, returning to their previous conversations and activities, Santiago remained in his chair, staring at the black screen of his phone. The laughter still echoed in his ears, a cruel reminder of the gulf between him and the world of technology his family navigated so easily. Hours later, as the last of the guests departed and the house grew quiet, Santiago retreated to his bedroom. He sat on the edge of his bed, the same bed he had shared with his beloved wife Maria for over 5 decades before cancer took her away 2 years ago. With trembling hands, he unlocked his phone and pulled up a photo of Maria. Her warm smile beamed back at him, a frozen moment of happiness from a time that felt like a lifetime ago. "I promised you I'd never stop learning, mi amor," Santiago whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But it's so hard without you here." A tear rolled down his cheek, landing on the screen and blurring Maria's face. Santiago gently wiped it away, his finger lingering on the image of his late wife. The cruel laughter from earlier still stung, but as he gazed at Maria's photo, a flicker of determination ignited in his heart. He had made a promise, and Santiago Martinez was not a man who broke his promises easily. Just then, a notification popped up on his screen. With some effort, Santiago managed to open the message. "Meeting in the group tonight. Don't be late." A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Despite the humiliation he had endured, despite the ache of loneliness that threatened to consume him, Santiago knew he had somewhere to be, somewhere he was needed. As he set an alarm for the meeting, another text came through. "We missed you last time, Santiago. Your words always bring us comfort." Santiago's chest swelled with a mix of pride and purpose. Yes, his family might laugh at his attempts to use the strange device, but there were others who valued what he had to offer. Others who understood that wisdom wasn't measured by one's ability to navigate a touchscreen. He glanced once more at Maria's photo. "I'll keep my promise, mi amor," he whispered, "no matter what it takes." As night fell over Houston, Santiago sat in the dim light of his bedroom, waiting for the group meeting to begin. The smartphone that had been a source of such humiliation just hours before now held the promise of connection, of purpose. The cruel laughter of the day faded into the background as Santiago prepared to enter a world where his words mattered, where his experience was valued. A world that existed in the very device his family thought he couldn't understand. Little did they know, Santiago Martinez was about to embark on a journey that would not only change his life but the lives of those around him in ways they could never imagine. As twilight descended over the quiet Houston suburb, Santiago settled into his favorite armchair, smartphone in hand. The house was silent now, a stark contrast to the boisterous family gathering earlier. He adjusted his reading glasses, squinting at the screen as he navigated to the video chat app. With a deep breath, he tapped the Join Meeting button. The screen flickered to life, revealing a grid of faces, men and women, all with silver hair and eyes that held stories of both joy and sorrow. This was Santiago's secret world, one his family knew nothing about. "Welcome, everyone," a gentle voice spoke. It belonged to Margaret, a retired teacher from Maine who had lost her husband of 50 years just months ago. "I'm glad to see you all here tonight." Santiago's heart warmed as he saw the familiar faces. There was John, a former firefighter from Chicago, his bushy mustache quivering as he offered a subdued smile. Beside him, Elena, not to be confused with Santiago's daughter, from Florida, her once vibrant red hair now a soft white. "Santiago," John's gruff voice boomed through the speakers. "We missed you last time, amigo. Everything okay?" Santiago nodded, a lump forming in his throat as he thought about the day's events. "Si, just family matters." Margaret leaned closer to her camera, her kind eyes filled with concern. "You seem troubled, Santiago. Would you like to share?" He hesitated, but the compassionate faces looking back at him provided the courage he needed. Santiago recounted the humiliating experience at the family gathering, his voice cracking as he described the laughter and mockery. "They think I'm too old for this technology," he finished, gesturing at his phone. "They don't understand. They don't know about you, about us." A chorus of sympathetic murmurs filled the virtual room. John's face darkened with anger. "Those young punks. They don't know what they're talking about." Now, Margaret interjected softly. "Remember, anger doesn't solve anything. Santiago, dear, your family's reaction says more about them than it does about you. You're here, aren't you? Learning, growing, connecting. That's what matters." Elena nodded vigorously. "That's right. Why, just last week you helped me figure out how to video call my granddaughter in Europe. You're more tech-savvy than you give yourself credit for." Santiago felt a warmth spread through his chest, chasing away the chill of loneliness that had settled there earlier. These people, scattered across the country, yet bound by shared experiences of loss and resilience, had become his lifeline. As the meeting progressed, each member shared updates on their lives. John spoke of his struggle to cook for himself, a task his late wife had always handled. Elena described the bittersweet process of sorting through her husband's belongings. Through it all, Santiago listened intently, offering words of encouragement and bits of hard-earned wisdom. Suddenly, a new face appeared on the screen. A man Santiago didn't recognize. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face gaunt with grief. "This is Tom," Margaret introduced gently. "He joined us last week." "Tom, would you like to share?" Tom's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can do this anymore. The silence in the house. It's deafening. Sarah's been gone for 3 months, and I can't see a reason to go on." A heavy silence fell over the group. Santiago felt his heart constrict, recognizing the raw pain in Tom's voice. It was the same pain he had grappled with after losing Maria. "Tom," Santiago said, surprised by the strength in his own voice. "I know it feels impossible now. When I lost my Maria, I thought the world had ended. But let me tell you something my abuela once told me. El dolor es el precio que pagamos por el amor." He paused, translating for the group. It means, pain is the price we pay for love. Your pain, Tom, it's a testament to the love you shared with Sarah. It honors her memory. Santiago leaned closer to the camera, his eyes intense. "But here's the thing. Sarah wouldn't want this pain to be the end of your story. Every day you keep going, every moment you choose to live, you're carrying her love forward. It's not easy, amigo, but it's worth it. We're here to help you see that." Tears streamed down Tom's face, but there was a glimmer of something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. A tiny spark of hope. As the meeting drew to a close, Margaret addressed the group. "Remember, friends, we're not alone in this journey. Santiago, thank you for your beautiful words. They remind us all why we're here." After saying their goodbyes, Santiago sat back in his chair, emotionally drained but oddly invigorated. He glanced at the framed photo of Maria on the side table, her radiant smile forever captured in time. "Did you see that, mi amor?" he whispered. "I'm keeping my promise. I'm still learning, still growing. And maybe, just maybe, I'm helping others do the same." As he prepared for bed, Santiago's mind drifted to his family. How could he make them understand the importance of what he was doing? The irony wasn't lost on him. The very technology they mocked him for not understanding had become his gateway to a community that valued his wisdom and experience. A notification pinged on his phone. It was a message from Tom. "Thank you, Santiago. Your words, they gave me something to hold on to. I'll try to keep going, one day at a time." Santiago smiled, a bittersweet mix of emotions washing over him. He had touched a life today, maybe even saved one. And yet, his own family remained oblivious to this hidden world he inhabited. As he drifted off to sleep, Santiago resolved to find a way to bridge these two worlds. Somehow, he would show his family the true power of connection. A power that transcended age, technology, and even death itself. Little did Santiago know, the journey ahead would test him in ways he never imagined, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and ultimately redefine what it means to leave a lasting legacy. The following week unfolded with an air of tension in the Martinez household. Santiago found himself caught between two worlds, the virtual sanctuary of his support group and the increasingly frustrating reality of his family life. It was a crisp Saturday morning when Elena, Santiago's daughter, noticed her father hunched over his smartphone at the kitchen table, brow furrowed in concentration. "Papa," she sighed, setting down a mug of coffee in front of him. "Don't you think you're spending too much time on that thing? It can't be good for your eyes." Santiago looked up, startled. He had been in the middle of typing a message to Margaret, offering advice on how to deal with her grandson's upcoming wedding, the first family event since her husband's passing. "I'm just checking the news," he lied, feeling a pang of guilt. It wasn't like him to be dishonest with his family, but how could he explain the profound connection he'd found online without sounding foolish? Elena shook her head, concern etched on her face. "I'm worried about you, Papa. Ever since Mama passed, you've been so distant. And now this obsession with the phone. It's not healthy." Santiago felt a flicker of irritation. "Obsession? Elena, I'm not a child. I'm simply trying to keep up with the times." "But at what cost?" Elena pressed. "You barely talk to us anymore. Miguel tried to show you his report card yesterday, and you just nodded without even looking up from that screen." The weight of her words hit Santiago hard. Had he really become so engrossed in his online world that he was neglecting his flesh and blood family? The thought sent a wave of shame through him. I'm sorry, Mija," he said softly. "I didn't realize." Elena's expression softened. She placed a hand on her father's shoulder. "We're just worried about you, Papa. We want to help. Why don't you let Miguel teach you how to use the phone properly? He'd love to spend time with you." Santiago tensed. The idea of his grandson discovering the support group messages filled him with dread. No, he said quickly. "I can manage. I just need more practice." Elena frowned, clearly unconvinced. "All right, Papa, but please try to spend more time with us. We miss you." As she left the kitchen, Santiago felt the weight of his secret pressing down on him. He loved his family dearly, but how could he make them understand that this technology they dismissed as beyond him had become his lifeline? Later that afternoon, Santiago retreated to his room for the group's weekly meeting. As faces appeared on the screen, he noticed Tom was absent. "Has anyone heard from Tom?" Santiago asked, worry creeping into his voice. Margaret shook her head, her eyes filled with concern. "He hasn't responded to any messages since Tuesday. I'm getting worried." The group spent the next hour brainstorming ways to reach out to Tom, with Santiago taking the lead in organizing a plan of action. As the meeting wrapped up, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Just as he was about to sign off, a knock at his bedroom door startled him. "Papa!" Elena's voice called out. "Who are you talking to?" Panic surged through Santiago. He quickly muted his microphone and minimized the video chat. "Nobody, Mija," he called back, his voice shakier than he'd like. "Just watching a video." There was a pause. "Papa, can I come in? We need to talk." Santiago's heart raced. He glanced at the screen, where his friends were looking back at him with concern. With a heavy sigh, he typed a quick message. "Family emergency. I'll update you later." Then he closed the app and opened the door. Elena stood there, a mix of worry and frustration on her face. "Papa, what's going on? I heard you talking. Are you okay?" For a moment, Santiago considered telling her everything about the group, about Tom, about the sense of purpose he'd found. But as he looked into his daughter's eyes, he saw fear there, fear for him. Fear of losing him to something she didn't understand. "I'm fine, Elena," he said softly. "I was just remembering your mother. Sometimes I talk to her, you know? It helps." Elena's expression crumpled, and she pulled her father into a tight hug. "Oh, Papa, we miss her too. You don't have to go through this alone." As Santiago returned the embrace, guilt gnawed at him. He was pushing away the very people he loved most, all for a secret life they might never understand. That night, as he lay in bed, Santiago stared at the ceiling, torn between two worlds. On his nightstand, his phone buzzed with messages from the group, concerned about his abrupt departure. In the next room, he could hear Elena and her husband talking in hushed tones, undoubtedly about him. Santiago reached for Maria's photo, tracing her face with a trembling finger. "What should I do, mi amor?" he whispered. "How can I honor my promise to you without losing our family?" As moonlight filtered through the curtains, Santiago made a decision. He would find a way to bridge these two worlds, to show his family the true value of what he'd discovered. But first, he had a more urgent mission, finding Tom and making sure he was safe. Little did Santiago know, his decision would set in motion a series of events that would test his resolve, challenge his relationships, and ultimately lead to a revelation that would leave everyone breathless. As he drifted off to sleep, his phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "Santiago, it's Tom. I need help. Please. The weight of the secret grew heavier, and Santiago knew that tomorrow would bring challenges he never expected to face at his age. But for now, sleep claimed him. His dreams a swirling mix of faces both familiar and virtual, all calling out for connection in a world that often felt too big and too lonely to bear. The following morning dawned gray and overcast, mirroring the turmoil in Santiago's heart. He had barely slept, Tom's desperate message weighing heavily on his mind. As he shuffled into the kitchen, he found Elena and her husband Robert already there, their hushed conversation falling silent at his appearance. "Buenos dias," Santiago mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot with trembling hands. Elena exchanged a glance with Robert before clearing her throat. "Papa, we need to talk." Santiago's stomach dropped. He knew that tone. It was the same one he had used years ago when confronting Elena about her rebellious teenage behavior. He lowered himself into a chair, clutching his coffee mug like a lifeline. "We're worried about you," Elena began, her voice gentle but firm. "You're spending all your time on that phone, barely talking to us. It's not healthy." Robert nodded in agreement. "We think maybe it's time to take a break from the technology for a while." Santiago's eyes widened in alarm. "No, you don't understand. What you need is to reconnect with your family," Elena interrupted. "We're right here, Papa. We want to help you, but we can't if you keep shutting us out." Before Santiago could protest further, Robert reached across the table and gently took the smartphone from his hand. "Just for a week, okay? Let's see if it helps." Panic rose in Santiago's chest. How could he explain that the device they saw as a distraction was his lifeline to a community that understood his grief? How could he tell them about Tom, who might be in real danger? "Poor favor," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "You don't know what you're doing." But his protests fell on deaf ears. Elena and Robert had made up their minds, convinced they were acting in his best interest. As the day wore on, Santiago felt increasingly isolated. He paced his room, glancing at the empty spot on his nightstand where his phone usually sat. What was happening in the group? Had anyone heard from Tom? The questions tormented him, but he had no way to find answers. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Santiago barely touched his food. Miguel, picking up on the tension, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey abuelo, wanna play some checkers after dinner? Like we used to?" Santiago managed a weak smile. "Maybe another time, Mijo. I'm not feeling well." Elena frowned, exchanging worried glances with Robert. Their plan to reconnect with Santiago seemed to be backfiring, pushing him further into isolation. As night fell, Santiago lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The silence in the room was deafening. He longed to hear the ping of a message, to see the faces of his online friends who had become like family. Suddenly, a thought struck him. The old desktop computer in the study. Surely they hadn't thought to block that too? Moving as quietly as he could, Santiago crept down the hallway. The ancient machine whirred to life, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet house. Santiago's fingers, clumsy with age and anxiety, pecked at the keyboard as he tried to remember his login details for the support group's website. Finally, he gained access. The forum was buzzing with activity, all centered around one topic: Tom's disappearance. "Has anyone heard from him? I've tried calling, but no answer. Should we contact the authorities?" Santiago's heart raced as he scrolled through the messages. He had to do something, but what? Without his phone, he felt helpless. Just as he was about to log off, a new message popped up. "This is Tom's daughter. I found your group in his browser history. He's in the hospital. Had a bad fall. He's asking for someone named Santiago. Says it's important." Santiago's breath caught in his throat. Tom needed him, but how could he explain this to his family? How could he get to the hospital without raising suspicion? As if on cue, the study door creaked open. Elena stood there, her expression a mix of confusion and disappointment. "Papa, what are you doing?" Santiago turned to face his daughter, tears welling in his eyes. The moment of truth had arrived, ready or not. "Mija," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "There's something I need to tell you. Something important." Elena stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. As Santiago began to explain, he could see the shock and disbelief playing across her face. But beneath it all, there was something else, a glimmer of understanding. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, a gentle patter against the windows. Inside, father and daughter sat bathed in the blue glow of the computer screen, bridging the gap between two worlds as the truth finally came to light. Santiago knew that this conversation would change everything. But as he looked into Elena's eyes, seeing not judgment but a growing comprehension, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Whatever came next, he would no longer have to face it alone. As the night deepened, the Martinez household held its breath, unaware that this moment of revelation would set in motion a chain of events that would test their bonds, challenge their perceptions, and ultimately lead to a discovery that would leave them all forever changed. The soft glow of dawn was just beginning to peek through the curtains as Santiago and Elena sat in the study, both emotionally exhausted from a night of revelations. Empty coffee mugs littered the desk, testament to the hours they'd spent talking. "So, this whole time," Elena said, her voice hoarse, "you've been part of this online support group?" Santiago nodded, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. "See, Mija, it started a few months after your mama passed. I felt so lost. Then I found them." Elena leaned back in her chair, processing the information. "And this Tom, he's in the hospital?" "That's what his daughter said," Santiago replied, worry creasing his brow. "Elena, I need to see him. He's been struggling, and he asked for me specifically." Elena rubbed her temples, clearly conflicted. "Papa, I understand this group means a lot to you, but we barely know anything about these people. Could be dangerous." Santiago's eyes flashed with a determination Elena hadn't seen in years. "Mija, listen to me. When your mama died, I thought my life was over. This group, they gave me purpose again. They need me, and right now, Tom needs me." There was a moment of tense silence before Elena let out a long sigh. "Okay, Papa, we'll go to the hospital. But I'm coming with you." Relief washed over Santiago's face. "Gracias, Mija. You'll see. These people, they're like family." As they prepared to leave, Robert appeared in the doorway, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on? Where are you two going so early?" Elena glanced at her father, then back to her husband. "We need to talk, honey. It's about Papa's project." The drive to the hospital was filled with explanations and questions. Robert, initially skeptical, began to see the passion in his father-in-law's eyes as Santiago described the impact of the support group. "I had no idea," Robert admitted as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. "Santiago, I'm sorry we took away your phone. We thought we were helping." Santiago patted his son-in-law's shoulder. "You meant well, but now you'll see why this matters so much." As they entered Tom's hospital room, Santiago's heart clenched. The man in the bed looked frail, his skin pale against the stark white sheets. But when Tom's eyes fell on Santiago, they lit up with recognition. "Santiago," Tom wheezed, attempting to sit up. "You came." Santiago rushed to his side, clasping Tom's hand. "Of course I came, amigo. We've been so worried." Elena and Robert hung back, watching the scene unfold with a mix of amazement and emotion. Tom's daughter, a woman in her mid-30s, approached them. "Are you Santiago's family?" When they nodded, she continued, her voice thick with gratitude. "Your father, he saved my dad's life." Elena's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The woman wiped away a tear. "Dad was in a dark place after Mom died. He was planning to end it all. But then he found your father's group." Santiago's words gave him hope, a reason to keep going. Robert put his arm around Elena, both of them watching Santiago interact with Tom with new eyes. "I thought I was alone," Tom was saying, his voice weak but filled with emotion. "But you showed me I wasn't. You all did." Santiago smiled, squeezing Tom's hand. "We're never alone, amigo. That's what family is for. As Santiago continued to comfort Tom, Elena turned to Robert, her eyes glistening. "We were so wrong," she whispered. "All this time we thought he was wasting away on that phone, but he was saving lives." Robert nodded, his own eyes moist. "Your father is an amazing man, Elena. We should have trusted him." The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions and explanations. Other members of the support group arrived, filling the small hospital room with a warmth that transcended the sterile environment. Elena and Robert watched in awe as Santiago moved among them, offering words of comfort here, a gentle touch there. It was like watching a maestro conduct an orchestra of emotions, each person responding to his unique blend of wisdom and compassion. As the day wore on, Santiago found a quiet moment with his daughter and son-in-law. "Now you see," he said softly. "This is why I needed the phone, why I spent so much time online. It wasn't about the technology. It was about the connection." Elena hugged her father tightly. "I'm so sorry we didn't understand, Papa. Can you forgive us?" Santiago's eyes crinkled with a smile. "There's nothing to forgive, Mija. But there is something I want to show you both." Pulling out his phone, which Elena had returned on the drive over, Santiago navigated to a folder labeled Para mi familia. "I've been working on this for months," he explained, his voice trembling slightly. Well, see for yourself." As Elena and Robert huddled around the small screen, Santiago hit play on the first video. His own face filled the frame, looking directly into the camera. "Hola, mi familia." The Santiago in the video began. "If you're watching this, it means I've finally found the courage to show you what I've been working on." What followed was a series of heartfelt messages, life lessons, and precious memories that Santiago had carefully recorded. There were stories about Elena's childhood that she had long forgotten, advice for Miguel as he grew into a young man, and tender recollections of his life with Maria. By the time the last video ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Elena looked at her father in wonder. "Papa, it's incredible. All this time, you were creating a legacy for us." Santiago nodded, his eyes shining. "I may not be here forever, Mija, but I wanted to make sure that my love, my memories, my advice, they would live on." Robert, his voice choked with emotion, spoke up. "Santiago, we owe you an apology. We thought you were wasting time with technology, but you were using it to create something priceless." As the realization of what Santiago had accomplished sank in, the atmosphere in the room shifted. What had started as a day of worry and confusion had transformed into a moment of profound connection and understanding. Tom, watching from his hospital bed, summed it up best. "You see, this is what Santiago does. He brings people together, bridges gaps. He's not just using technology. He's mastering it to spread love." As the sun began to set outside the hospital window, casting a warm glow over the gathered family, both blood and chosen Santiago felt a sense of peace wash over him. The secret was out, the truth revealed. And in that revelation, he had not only saved a life, but had also deepened the bonds with his own family in ways he never thought possible. Looking around the room, at the faces filled with love and newfound respect, Santiago silently thanked Maria. "I kept my promise, mi amor," he thought. "I never stopped learning, never stopped loving. And now, our family is bigger than ever." The weight of the secret had been lifted, replaced by the warmth of understanding and the promise of a future where technology would bring them closer, not drive them apart. As Santiago prepared to head home with Elena and Robert, he knew that this was not an ending, but a new beginning, one filled with endless possibilities for connection, growth, and love. The following weeks brought a whirlwind of change to the Martinez household. Santiago's revelation had sparked a transformation in his relationship with his family, particularly with his grandson Miguel. The teenager, once dismissive of his grandfather's attempts at technology, now sat beside Santiago daily, eager to learn about the online support group and help improve Santiago's digital skills. It was during one of these sessions that Santiago received an urgent message from Margaret. "Santiago, we need your help," the message read. Lisa hasn't been online for days, and her last post was concerning. We're worried. Miguel leaned in, curiosity piqued. Who's Lisa, abuelo? Santiago's brow furrowed with worry. She's a widow from Seattle. Her husband passed away 6 months ago, and she's been struggling. He quickly typed a reply, asking for more details. Margaret's response came swiftly. Her last message said she couldn't bear the loneliness anymore. She mentioned a place called Deception Pass. Santiago, I have a bad feeling about this. Miguel's eyes widened as he read the message. Abuelo, Deception Pass. I've heard of that place. It's known for suicides. Santiago's heart sank. He remembered the pain in Lisa's voice during their last video call. The way her eyes had seemed empty, devoid of hope. How had he missed the signs? We need to do something, Santiago said, his voice filled with determination. But Seattle is so far. Miguel placed a hand on his grandfather's shoulder. We can still help, abuelo. Let me show you something. Over the next hour, Miguel guided Santiago through a crash course in digital detective work. They scoured social media, searched public records, and even used satellite imagery to piece together clues about Lisa's whereabouts. Elena and Robert, drawn by the commotion, joined the impromptu search party. Soon, the living room was transformed into a command center, with laptops open and phones buzzing as the family coordinated with other members of the support group across the country. "I've found her address," Robert announced, triumphantly holding up his tablet. "And I've contacted the Seattle PD for a welfare check." Elena, meanwhile, had been reaching out to hospitals and parks near Deception Pass. "No one matching Lisa's description has been admitted," she reported, a mix of relief and concern in her voice. As night fell, the tension in the room was palpable. Santiago sat in his armchair, his phone clutched tightly in his hand, waiting for any news. The others moved around him, speaking in hushed tones, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on them all. Suddenly, Santiago's phone buzzed. A video call from an unknown number. With trembling fingers, he answered. Lisa's tear-stained face filled the screen. Behind her, Santiago could make out trees and the faint sound of rushing water. His heart clenched. "Lisa, mi amiga," he said softly, gesturing for the others to gather around. "Where are you?" Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Santiago. I can't do this anymore. It hurts too much." Santiago leaned closer to the screen, his eyes filled with compassion. "Lisa, listen to me. I know the pain you're feeling. When I lost my Maria, I thought the world had ended. But you are not alone. We are all here with you." As Santiago spoke, Elena quietly slipped out of the room, phone in hand, coordinating with the Seattle authorities. "You don't understand," Lisa sobbed. "Every day, I wake up and he's not there. The house is so empty, so quiet. I have no one." Santiago's voice grew firm. "That's not true, Lisa. You have us. Look around you." As if on cue, Miguel tapped a few keys on his laptop, and suddenly the screen was filled with faces, members of the support group from across the country, all joining the call. "We're here, Lisa." Margaret's gentle voice came through. "We're your family now." John's gruff tone followed. "You think you're alone? Heck, I'm about ready to drive up to Seattle myself to prove you wrong." Tears streamed down Lisa's face as more voices joined in, each sharing a piece of their own story, their own struggle, and how they found the strength to keep going. Santiago watched as the despair in Lisa's eyes slowly gave way to something else, a flicker of hope. "You see, mi amiga," Santiago said softly, "the love we shared with those we lost, it doesn't die with them. It lives on in us and in the connections we make. Your husband would want you to live, to love again, to find joy." Lisa wiped her eyes, her breath coming in shuddering gasps. I don't know if I can." "You can," Santiago assured her. "And you won't do it alone. We'll be with you every step of the way." Just then, Elena rushed back into the room. "The police found her," she whispered to Santiago. "They're on their way." Santiago nodded, keeping his focus on Lisa. Mi amiga, help is coming. Will you wait for them? For us. There was a long moment of silence, the only sound the rushing water in the background. Then slowly Lisa nodded. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the room and across the digital space. As they waited for the authorities to arrive, the group continued to talk, sharing stories, offering words of encouragement, and reminding Lisa that she was loved. Hours later, as dawn broke over Houston, Santiago finally set down his phone. Lisa was safe, in the hospital but surrounded by local members of the group who had rushed to her side. He looked around at his family, Elena dozing on the couch, Robert brewing another pot of coffee, Miguel bleary-eyed but still typing away, coordinating with the online community. "We did it, abuelo," Miguel said, a tired but proud smile on his face. "We saved her." Santiago nodded, his heart full. "Sí, mijo. We all did." He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "Thank you for believing in me, for helping. This is what family does." As the first rays of sunlight streamed through the window, Santiago closed his eyes, offering a silent prayer of thanks. He had kept his promise to Maria, to keep learning, to keep loving. And in doing so, he had not only expanded his own family but had helped save a life. The journey wasn't over. Lisa would need ongoing support, and there were undoubtedly others out there struggling in silence. But as Santiago looked at the faces of his loved ones, both in the room and on the screens around him, he knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The technology that had once divided them had become a powerful tool for connection, compassion, and even rescue. And Santiago, the unlikely digital pioneer, was leading the way. The warm Texas sun filtered through the curtains of the Martinez family living room, casting a golden glow on the gathering inside. It had been 3 months since the night they had helped save Lisa's life, and the family had gathered for what Santiago called a special presentation. Elena, Robert, and Miguel sat on the couch, curiosity evident on their faces. Santiago stood before them, his weathered hands clutching a small remote control, a mix of nervousness and excitement in his eyes. "Familia," Santiago began, his voice trembling slightly. "Over the past few months, you've seen a part of my life I kept hidden for too long. Today, I want to share something even more personal with you." He pressed a button, and the large TV screen flickered to life. The image of Santiago appeared, sitting in his favorite armchair, looking directly at the camera. "Hola, mi querida familia," the Santiago on the screen began. "If you're watching this, it means I've finally found the courage to show you what I've been working on for the past year." Elena gasped softly, her hand reaching for Robert's. Miguel leaned forward, his eyes wide with interest. The video Santiago continued, "When your abuela, mi Maria, passed away, I felt lost. The world seemed empty, colorless. But then I remembered a promise I made to her long ago, that I would never stop learning, never stop growing, even when she was gone." The scene changed, showing a montage of old family photos, Santiago and Maria on their wedding day, Elena as a baby, family vacations, and precious moments frozen in time. "These memories," Santiago's voice narrated, "they're not just images, they're pieces of our family's soul. I realized that I had a responsibility to preserve them, to pass on the wisdom and love that Maria and I accumulated over our lifetime." The video cut to a series of clips, each featuring Santiago addressing different members of the family. To Elena, "Mija, do you remember the day you learned to ride a bicycle? You were so scared but so determined. That determination, that spirit, it's still in you. It's what makes you an incredible mother, a loving daughter, a successful woman. Never lose that fire, Elena." Tears welled up in Elena's eyes as she watched, memories flooding back. To Robert, "You came into our family as Elena's novio, but you became a son to me. The way you love my daughter, the way you've embraced our culture and traditions. It makes me proud to call you my son-in-law. Remember, family is not just blood. It's the bonds we choose to strengthen every day." Robert squeezed Elena's hand, his own eyes glistening with emotion. To Miguel, "Ah, mi nieto, You've grown so much, and yet I see the same curious little boy who used to beg me for bedtime stories. The world is changing so fast, but never forget where you come from. Your roots will give you strength to reach for the stars. And Miguel, always be kind. In a world that can be cruel, kindness is a superpower. Miguel wiped a tear from his cheek, looking at his grandfather with newfound admiration. The video continued, with Santiago sharing life lessons, funny anecdotes, and heartfelt messages for birthdays, graduations, and even potential future great-grandchildren. As the final video played, Santiago on the screen looked directly at the camera, his eyes filled with love and wisdom. My dear family, life is precious and fleeting. We don't know how much time we have, but we can choose how we spend it. Love fiercely, forgive easily, learn constantly, and remember, no matter where life takes you, you are never alone. Our love, our family's love, will always be with you. The screen faded to black, and for a moment, the room was silent except for soft sniffles. Santiago turned to face his family, his own eyes moist. "This is my legacy to you," he said softly. "Not money or property, but memories, love, and lessons learned over a lifetime." Elena was the first to move, enveloping her father in a tight embrace. "Oh, Papa," she sobbed. It's priceless. Thank you." Robert joined the hug, his voice thick with emotion. "Santiago, you've given us a treasure beyond measure." Miguel, wiping his eyes, looked at his grandfather with newfound respect. "Abuelo, I always thought technology was just for young people. But you've used it to create something immortal." Santiago smiled, his heart full. "It's not about the technology, Mijo. It's about the connection, the love. That's what truly lasts." As the family gathered around Santiago, sharing memories and asking questions about the videos, there was a palpable sense of something profound having shifted. The distance that had grown between them, the misunderstandings about Santiago's digital life, all of it had melted away, replaced by a deeper appreciation and understanding. Santiago looked around at his family, Elena and Robert holding hands, Miguel excitedly discussing ideas for adding to the video collection, and felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had kept his promise to Maria, not just by learning new technology, but by using it to strengthen the bonds of family across generations. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Santiago knew that this was not an ending, but a new beginning. The legacy he had created would continue to grow, to evolve, to connect. And in that digital tapestry of memories and love, Maria's spirit and the spirit of their family would live on forever. The technology that had once seemed like a barrier had become a bridge, not just to the wider world, but to the hearts of those he loved most. And as Santiago looked at the faces of his family, he knew that this legacy, this digital love letter to life itself, was his greatest achievement. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of family and the glow of screens filled with memories, Santiago felt truly at peace. He had not only adapted to the digital age, he had used it to create something timeless, something that would echo through the generations. And in doing so, he had ensured that the love, wisdom, and spirit of the Martinez family would never be forgotten. As the golden hues of a Texas sunset painted the sky, the Martinez family home buzzed with an energy it hadn't known in years. It was Santiago's 80th birthday, and the house was filled with laughter, music, and the aroma of Elena's famous paella. But this was no ordinary family gathering. In the living room, a large screen displayed a mosaic of faces, members of Santiago's online support group from across the country, all joining in to celebrate their beloved friend and mentor. Santiago sat in his favorite armchair, a colorful serape draped over his shoulders, his eyes twinkling with joy as he looked around at the sea of faces, both physical and virtual. Elena approached, carrying a laptop. "Papa, there's a surprise guest who wants to say hello." The screen changed, and suddenly Lisa's face appeared, her smile radiant. "Happy birthday, Santiago," she exclaimed. "I hope you don't mind, but I have a little surprise for you." The camera panned out, revealing Lisa standing in front of a community center. A sign above the door read Santiago's Place, a haven for digital seniors. "After you saved my life," Lisa explained, her voice thick with emotion, "I knew I had to do something to honor you and everything you've taught us. This center will help seniors connect with loved ones online, join support groups, and create their own digital legacies." Santiago's eyes welled with tears. "Dios mío," he whispered. "Lisa, this is incredible." The celebration continued, with stories and tributes pouring in from around the world. Miguel, now a college student, stood up to address the gathering. "Abuelo," he began, his voice strong and clear, "when I was younger, I thought I knew everything about technology, but you taught me its true power, the power to connect, to heal, to preserve what's most precious. You're not just my grandfather, you're my hero." As the night wore on, Santiago found a quiet moment amidst the festivities. He slipped away to his bedroom, where Maria's photo still sat on the nightstand. Picking it up, he traced her face with a gentle finger. "Mi amor," he whispered. "Can you believe it? All those years ago, when I promised you I'd keep learning, I never imagined this. Our family, it's grown so much bigger than we ever dreamed." A soft knock at the door interrupted his reverie. Elena entered, concern etched on her face. "Papa, are you okay?" Santiago smiled, patting the bed beside him. As Elena sat down, he took her hand. "Mija, I'm more than okay. I'm complete." Elena's eyes searched his face. "What do you mean?" Santiago's gaze drifted to the window, where the last rays of sunlight were fading. "When your mama died, I thought my story was ending, but it was just beginning a new chapter. And now," he paused, squeezing Elena's hand, "now I know that our story, our family's story, will go on. In the videos, in the lives we've touched, in this beautiful family we've built." Tears glistened in Elena's eyes. "Oh, Papa, don't be sad, Mija," Santiago said gently. "Be joyful. We've created something beautiful, something that will last long after we're gone." As they rejoined the party, Santiago was greeted by a chorus of cheers and well wishes. He looked around at the faces of his loved ones, Elena and Robert, Miguel and his college friends, his online family beaming from the screen, and felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. In that moment, Santiago realized that he had achieved something truly remarkable. He had not only bridged the gap between generations, but had created a legacy that transcended time and space. Through the very technology that once isolated him, he had forged connections that would endure, touching lives far beyond his own family. As the celebration continued around him, Santiago closed his eyes for a moment, offering a silent prayer of gratitude for the life he had lived, for the love he had known, and for the unexpected journey that had led him here to this moment of perfect connection. When he opened his eyes, Santiago's gaze fell on the laptop screen, where Lisa was still visible, tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched the festivities. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange, Santiago saw the profound impact of his digital journey. A life saved, a purpose found, a community built. "Gracias," Santiago whispered. His words meant for everyone and everything that had brought him to this point. For Maria, whose memory had inspired him to keep growing. For his family, who had learned to see beyond the surface of his digital explorations. For the countless souls he had touched through screens and wires, proving that love and connection know no boundaries. As the night drew to a close, Santiago stood, raising a glass to address the room and the digital assembly. His voice, though soft with age, carried the strength of a life well lived and a heart full of love. "To family," he said, his eyes shining, "both the one we're born into and the one we choose. May we always remember that it's not the technology that connects us, but the love we share through it." Salud! A chorus of salud echoed through the room and across the digital waves, a testament to the bridges Santiago had built, the lives he had touched, and the legacy he would leave behind. As the last guests departed and the screens went dark, Santiago sat once more in his favorite chair. He picked up his smartphone, now as familiar to him as an old friend, and opened the photo album. Thousands of memories stared back at him, a digital tapestry of a life rich with love, learning, and connection. With a contented sigh, Santiago set the phone down and closed his eyes. He had kept his promise to Maria, and in doing so had discovered a whole new world of possibilities. As he drifted off to sleep, a smile played on his lips, for he knew that his story, their story, would live on, touching hearts and changing lives long into the future. In the quiet of the night, as the stars twinkled over Texas, the legacy of Santiago Martinez continued to pulse through the digital ether, a beacon of hope, wisdom, and unconditional love for generations to come. Thank you very much for listening to this story. Comment below what you thought of the ending and from which city you're listening to us. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, click on the next story that's appearing on your screen now. Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a huge community that shares inspiring stories together. See you soon.